Remote reality, yeah, that's the key. Unlocking stories wild and free. With the hosts side by side. Channel surfers, let's ride.
Welcome to Remote Reality. This is Lauren. All right, Channel Surfers, today we're going to dive into Toxic. It's a show on Max that's real stories that talk about the dark side of love. So Elizabeth Chambers, she had to unravel lies and red flags in her own marriage. So now in Toxic, we're going to see her meeting with victims to investigate how love turns toxic. This looks so good. I'm so excited to watch. Let's see what happens. So we're going to start with season 1, episode 1, Sleeping with a Stranger. The show starts with an aerial night view looking down on a section of what appears to be a suburban area. There's a brightly lit parking lot filled with cars, surrounded by dark areas illuminated by roads and moving traffic. We hear a 911 call. Female screams help. The 911 operator asks where the address of the call is coming from. And then you hear a male voice saying everything is okay and hanging up the phone. We see a bald man with a yellow tie and gray suit. He's smiling and taking a selfie in the mirror. He appears to be in his 30s. We see the 911 operator call back, and it goes straight to voicemail. Elizabeth tells us that navigating her past and external heartbreak has brought her back to investigative journalism. Throughout the opening, we hear some of Britney Spears' Toxic, which was really fun. This is right up my alley. So we start with Elizabeth driving in the car. She says that she's known so many people who've been involved in tragic relationships. I completely understand this. Probably because I'm on those Facebook groups where it's like a group where you tell them to dump them. So I think social media has provided a platform where people can talk about this. And as I'm having these thoughts, Elizabeth says that the most important thing you can lose in a toxic relationship is your voice. We're taken to a house. A woman with shoulder-length blonde hair sits in a chair, looking somewhat nervous. We see production setting up. She's looking around the room. Elizabeth tells us that when you lose your voice, you need others to tell your story. And that's how we connect with Christina Henschel, the woman sitting in this chair. Christina's best friend is Kelly. Christina and Kelly met because they shared a mutual friend. And they met for a boozy brunch where they were dancing on tables. There's pictures from this party. They've got some heels on for these tables. I would fall and break my neck nowadays. So long story short, this mutual friend that they have, that they were going to these boozy parties with, she was sleeping with both of their boyfriends. How's that for a twister? They have so much in common that they share, and apparently their friend does too. No way to bond like having a mutual enemy. When Christina first met Kelly, she was thrown off. This woman was beautiful. She was smart. She had her own therapy practice. She was single. She had a house that she owned by herself. She had nice jewelry, a Corvette, her mother's crystal in the house. So Christina told her, don't let people in your house. You don't want them to take advantage of you. So now we see Chris. This is the same bald man with the yellow tie that we had at the beginning of the story. We see his dating profile, which describes him as professional with a wild side. Ooh, that wild side, I guess if you mean crazy, psycho, possible murderer, that's one way to say it. Now we learn he was a combat vet in the Army. He's an Aquarius, an introvert, and an empath. Those air signs. Christina tells us that Chris was good looking, empathetic, and successful. So when Christina first met Chris, it was about a month after he started dating Kelly, and she was enamored by him. She found him to be charming, handsome. We see a handwritten note on the roses, and it says, babes, just because with a heart. This feels an awful lot like love bombing. This is happening fast. Everybody thinks he's perfect. He's just trying to suck her in so that when she sees his true side, it's too late. She's already in love. Not that it's too late, but she's more invested. This is what they do. They get you invested fast, these toxic guys. They give you this really, really, really good love feeling. And then when the bad, true side comes out, you want it to go back to the good times. And I think that's what we're going to see here. He's going to be very charming. People are really going to like him, but he can only keep up that act for so long. It's like when you go into a job interview. The first time you dress up, you're perky, you're chipper, you're excited to be there. Are you that same person 5 years into your job? You're putting your best foot forward. We do that. It's natural. And Chris wants Kelly to like him. But when they overdo it, I'm always suspicious. Red flag. Christina says that Chris just seemed absolutely in love with Kelly. And that's what anybody would want for their best friend. Chris tells Christina he's planning on proposing to Kelly. And she's so excited. But then he tells her it's only family. It seems like Christina was really close with Kelly. Why is he excluding people that are close to her from this special moment? Christina goes on to explain she is Kelly's only family. She felt like Chris was controlling their relationship. He wasn't allowing her to be there. Another red flag. Isolating her support system. This is her only family. So Christina asks Chris to videotape the engagement. And he does, and we see that clip. Kelly has stunning red hair. She goes to take a picture with Chris. As she stands beside him with her arm wrapped around his waist, he drops down to one knee and proposes. We now see their wedding. There's a gazebo with pink and white flowers on the corners. White tulle hangs down from the rafters, and a gold chandelier with crystal chained to the top of the rafters. The view overlooks an ocean scene. It really is a lovely wedding. See palm trees blowing in the wind, and everybody looks very happy. The night of the wedding, they're sitting down and having dinner. So Chris said something that sparked Christina to mention that she married Kelly first. And then we see a picture of her and Kelly in their white wedding dresses. And she said they had a little ceremony when they first became best friends, somewhat of a joke. So they threw themselves a little, we're committed to each other as best friends ceremony. Very cute. So obviously this was a very lighthearted moment. And apparently this lighthearted joke did not go over well with Chris. He had a fit. He stormed off. It's his wedding night. He didn't even finish half of his dinner. The man can't take a joke. Red flag. Oh, in the wedding night, your friend just committed to this guy. She's legally bound to him. Somebody shred that affidavit before it gets to the courthouse. Let's not send that marriage certificate back. Just lose it. Come on, Christina. You got this, girl. She said that Chris storming out was for sure a red flag. Girl, agreed. Does anybody else find it funny that Kelly married Chris, but her best friend was Christina? So she married Christina in their ceremony, and then Chris and Christina. She likes the Chris's. So Christina tells us that once Kelly married Chris, their relationship completely changed. Kelly and Christina would be together every weekend, every other weekend. After 8 months of marriage, Christina says they maybe saw each other 4 times. That is a huge red flag. I've been married for 6 years and I still see my friends often. My friend Rebecca, she comes over probably every other weekend, sometimes every weekend. I text my friends on a group message and we often make plans to hang out. I'm 41 years old and it looks like Kelly was even younger. I can't imagine not having family and then just excluding your friend. But yeah, marriage should not change you. It should not change your friendships. This is not good. So Christina starts crying and she tells us that basically the only time she knew Kelly was okay was when she would call her on the phone and hear her voice. Kelly had everything. She had a career. She had her own house, a dog. She had everything except that one missing piece. She wanted a partner. You don't have to sacrifice everything to have a partner, though. You need to find somebody that fits into your life, not changes your life. And then we learn the timeline. Forget red flags. This is a red billboard. She was married in 2 months and moved in with him in 3. This is love bombing. Everything has moved so fast. He's got her to where she is now legally bound to him after 2 months. She hasn't even been through each holiday of the year with him, not even a season. He needs her to be invested fast because I'm sure in his past, people have left when they figured out who he is. So he realizes he needs to get his hooks in fast. This is such a red flag. She had such a good life, but she was just so desperate to have a partner, and she risked everything for it. Kelly knew Chris was the one, and when you know, you know. I so disagree. You have to have information where you can know. The one isn't just about feelings and vibes. It's about shared life goals. It's about ability to communicate. It's about having similar ideas for finances, religion sometimes, politics. It's a lot more than, ooh, this feels good. When you know, but you're not going to have enough information to know after 2 months. Anybody can put their best foot forward for 2 months. And you just have to think, what did Chris do to get her to say yes? Because obviously it felt good. What he was doing was making her feel absolutely loved. It was intoxicating. But I'm wondering, what's he intoxicating her with? What got her to the point of I do in 2 months? Chris checked all of Kelly's boxes. But is that really him? We don't know. Now we're 11 months into this. We're getting so close to 12 months. I wonder if this is where it falls apart, though. Like I said, share at least once of every season with the person. She had just dated this guy a little longer. She would have had a better idea of what to expect. So in December 2019, Christina says she got a phone call from Chris inviting her for a girls' weekend with Kelly. And he says that he wants to do something special. Considering he kept her out of the engagement, her friend hasn't been talking to her, what's his motive? This would feel very out of the blue. He told Christina he was going to get her and Kelly massages to have this girls' getaway. When they got there, everything was paid for. Everything was set up. This sounds like something bad happened and the honeymoon stage. So in psychology, there's a cycle of abuse theory, and you have 4 stages in it. The first stage is the tension building stage. The abuser is creating tension. The survivor's stress builds up during this stage. Next, you have the incident. This is where the abuser lashes out physically, verbally, psychologically, sexually, trying to dominate the victim. Then you have the reconciliation. This is where the abuser makes excuses and tries to apologize for the incident. Gaslighting is common here, gift giving, and I suspect this massage may have been the reconciliation stage. And then you have calm. Things seem fine, maybe even better than before, but it doesn't last long. After the calm, tensions start to build and the cycle repeats itself. So this is what I think is happening here with this massage. I think we probably had an incident and he is trying to apologize for it, to keep her invested, to show her that he can be that person that she needs to keep her in the relationship. We see Chris opening the door for Kelly and Christina. He's saying, you girls deserved it. He brought umbrellas because it was raining. He had a bottle of wine waiting for them when they got back from the massage place. He was serving them. He was very charming. But I have a question. What is Chris doing at the girls' weekend? Christina tells us that this is the last time she saw Kelly before the attack. We see a picture, another selfie of Chris, but this one is a little bit different than the first one. It's still in a mirror, but in this picture, his knuckles are bloody. There's blood on the countertop of the bathroom. There's some blood up by his neck. He also has his pants pulled down with his dick hanging out. What the heck happened here? That's disturbing. Actually, this isn't a selfie. This is a video. He says, fuck you. The camera zooms in and it appears that he's cut his wrist. He cut it from side to side. He said, I loved you and I wanted you to love me and take care of me like I deserve. This person needs some help. Now we meet Dave Littleman. He's a retired detective from the Hanover PD. He sits in a chair with a blue long sleeve button-up shirt. He wears metal frame glasses. He's bald and his blue eyes look into the camera. Elizabeth asks him if this is one of the worst cases that he experienced in his entire career, and he agrees. We go back to the 911 call. We hear the same voice, which we now know is Kelly's, scream, and the operator asks, where is your emergency? And we hear Chris say everything's okay, and we're sorry, and hang up the call again. Detective Littleman says that dispatch put out a call for a domestic violence situation in progress. Once the call went out, everybody flew out of the headquarters to get out to the scene. Detective Littleman was the first at the scene. He gets to the front and there's this big window. He sees a naked guy just walking, just going down the stairs. Wow. I wonder if the picture we just saw in the mirror is from this night. It was disturbing. Now, dispatch did say the guy was armed with a knife. We see the police officers opening the door to enter the house. They're armed. They're demanding Chris get on the floor. He's screaming back at him. When they enter and see Chris, he's naked and bloody and incoherent. They're going to arrest this naked, bloody man. That is a tough day at work. Chris was ranting something about how he was in the war and how he killed people. He wasn't following any of the officers' commands. So then they get him handcuffed, and oh boy, we are getting into the crime scene. Oh, there's blood down the hall. What are we going to see? These parts always make me so nervous. My gosh, there's blood on the window. There's blood dripping down the walls. So much blood just dripping down the walls. What the hell happened? Oh my gosh. Every room is destroyed. There's a table flipped upside down. There's blood going up the walls on the sides of the staircase. Crime scene video. I mean, I definitely look at it. When I've done criminal defense cases, I have had pictures of murder victims on my dining room table. It's never easy to see. They point out the blood on the walls. Yes, that is very obvious. There's TVs smashed. There's this big TV, glass everywhere, laying on the floor in front of a chest of drawers. It's like there's a child's toy in there. Where is the child? That's like a remote control car. I don't know. We see the overturned table. The master bedroom is in a disarray. He says it's probably one of the worst he's ever seen. Then we see a kitchen sink. There's blood on the side of the counter. It's a farmhouse style kitchen sink. There's blood dripping down the front of this white sink. Oh, there's something on the floor, I am sure, in front of this sink. All right, come on, Lauren. You can watch it. You got this. Does anybody else give themselves a pep talk? Is anybody else watching this part through the smallest part of their fingers? I'm shaking. Oh my gosh. And then Elizabeth asks, as you look around the house, what are your thoughts? And the detective says, how did she survive? I did not expect that. Wow. I mean, there is blood in every room of this house. The laundry room, the master bedroom, the staircases. It looks like she's been chased through this entire house. I am shocked that we have a survivor. We see a white chair. It looks like an interview is set up. A woman comes in. She has bright red hair. She sits down and we meet Kelly. There she is. There's Kelly. Wow. She has tears in her eyes. She's recalling a very traumatic experience. My gosh. And I just realized the detective's name is Littman, David Littman. And I've been calling him Little Man. I used to have a Chiweenie named Little Man. So sorry, Mr. Littman. I've got it right. We're going to get it right from now on. Kelly. She has tears in her eyes as she introduces herself. It's taken a long time to get to where she is today. It's been over 4 years. She's not a victim. She's a survivor. We see Chris and Kelly laying in bed. He's kissing her head. We hear a voicemail that Chris left Kelly. I just want to talk to you. I love you. Well, that sounds like the apology phase. Now, Kelly says one of the things she remembers most about the attack is that his eyes were black. They went from crystal blue to black. And Elizabeth understands this. She said, yeah, that's like an out-of-body experience. I wonder what causes that. Kelly explains that seeing his black eyes was one of the scariest things she's ever seen. I wonder if they just changed colors in an instant. Kelly's mom always stressed that Kelly should be independent. And that is some brilliant advice. Even if you're happily married, you never know what could happen. Even if you and your partner want to be together for the rest of your lives, you never know how long that will be. Kelly has a master's degree and she's a psychotherapist. And in 2008, she wanted to be a homeowner, and that's when she bought her house. She's a psychotherapist. I wonder if she was trying to fix him. I am not a fixer kind of person. The house she had in 2008, we see that that's the house where the attack happened. She's been in that house ever since. She first met Chris in August of 2018 on a dating app. He was 33, but she said he seemed amazing. He was intelligent, compassionate. He asked her about her, and she says, my relationship moved incredibly fast. We got engaged in December 18, married in January 2019. And she said at first living with him was phenomenal. He would buy her chocolate-covered pretzels and white lilies. Wow, that would win me over. I'm seeing how he did this. Chocolate pretzels and white lilies. Yes and yes. I would still have questions. I would still be skeptical, but he's breaking her down. She says that they never fought, but again, they were married after 2 months. Chris was head over heels in love with her. That love is intoxicating. If it feels too good to be true, give it some time. Make sure that this is the real deal. As far as things moving fast, I wonder if she ever put up any resistance to that. And I wonder what his reaction was, if she did. When she first met Chris, she had just got back from Croatia and she wasn't feeling great. She started getting rashes and headaches and vibes. She was tired all the time and the doctors weren't sure what was wrong. We see pictures of hives all over her body. She says that a lot of her relationship, she was in bed and Chris was catering to her. He'd get her what she wanted to eat, brought her water. He always told her, I'd have you at your best one day, so I love you even at your worst. So, red flag, he's found her in a vulnerable position and he is winning her over by being everything she needs. And Kelly tells us that she first noticed things changing in their relationship after they got married. She said things changed sexually. Remember, this is only 2 months into them knowing each other. If he didn't get his hooks in fast, she would have been gone at this point. Now, she was saying at the beginning their sex life was good. It wasn't great. She was sick. When they got married, even though she wasn't feeling good, he would still demand sex. Red flag. He started pushing her boundaries. Kelly told Chris before they got married about a sexual assault when she was 20 years old. She was in a nightclub and the attacker ejaculated in her mouth. And before they got married, he was the perfect gentleman about it. But after they got married, he would say, if you really loved me, you would swallow. Dude, what the heck? If you really loved her, you wouldn't make her trauma worse. And what does swallowing your ejaculate have to do with love? Wild. But you're claiming to really love her and you want to re-traumatize her. There is something wrong with this man. So finally he breaks her down and she does it. That's not good enough. So then he says that she's not initiating enough and she would initiate and then he would reject her. I have exceeded my limit for this man's bullshit. But at this point, we're only halfway through the show. Oh my gosh. Ugh. He's gross. So December 16th, 2019, Kelly goes upstairs. She sees Chris laying in bed. He's passed out holding his phone. And she says the way he was sitting was bizarre. And she got a gut instinct to look through his phone. Red flag. Another red flag. If you have this instinct to look through your partner's phone, you don't trust them. And how could she? She's only known him for 11 months and he's already taken her through the ringer. So I don't blame her at all for doing this. But I don't know. You probably don't want to marry somebody if you feel like you need to look through their phone. If you don't have enough trust in who they are, it doesn't sound like a good foundation. I've known my husband over 15 years and I've never looked through his phone, not once. And he's never gone through my phone. So yes, red flag, red flag. And we see text messages or Facebook messages. It says, get on your knees. Who is he messaging? And by the way, I love to be licked and sucked all over my body. Ooh, okay. Great to know. I don't think these messages are to his mom. I love oral. God, I hope these aren't to his best friend. About to go watch the basketball game or something. So she found a ton of messages with a woman and she had no idea who this person was. They're very sexually explicit. And in the messages, he was so demeaning about Kelly, saying that he wasn't in love with her and that she's a drug addict and abusive. They were filled with lies. And she was horrified. Kelly says, this is not the man I married. He would never do that. Unfortunately, she's wrong. This is the man she married. She just didn't know him yet. She knew one side of him. As bloody as that crime scene was, I don't think this is the first time this person has been violent. So she wakes him up and she starts reciting calmly some of these messages. Why do I get the feeling that this man is not going to handle being questioned well? When she started reciting these messages, he just looked at her and his face dropped. He actually said nothing. And then he just got up, walked into the bathroom, and got into the shower. So Chris starts calling Christina nonstop, back to back to back. And he tells Christina that Kelly is going to kill herself. So she calls Kelly. And then we see Kelly saying, I was not suicidal. Christina knew that. Chris knew that. What the heck? Is he trying to set the stage so when he kills her, they think it was a suicide? That's my best guess. Let's keep watching. So Kelly says she hears Chris try to open the safe where the gun is. Luckily, she had changed the code to the safe. I wonder what made her change the code to the safe. There had been tension building, I'm sure. This is the explosion part of the cycle of abuse. So fortunately, she had the forethought to lock that safe, change that code to where he could not get in it. But if you're at that place in your marriage, gosh, only 11 months. I can't imagine living with somebody who I don't trust or feel safe around. This is heartbreaking. So after Chris's failed attempt to get into the safe, he comes bolting down the stairs naked and he gets right into Kelly's face. And he tells her, thanks for always having the ID channel on, because now I'm going to make this look like you tried to kill me. We enter the door of Kelly's house and Kelly is taking us through that horrific night. She's standing in front of her front door and she shows exactly where Chris came down naked and got in her face. Kelly tells us she notices the cut on his wrist and he starts smearing blood all over her face, her clothes. This person gets a calm question about a text message he sent, and this is the response. I did not think he would take it well. This is unhinged. After Chris smears his blood all over Kelly, he's ready to finish staging this crime scene. Kelly, even though she's standing in front of the front door, she runs upstairs. I wonder if he was blocking the door or what made her think to go up the stairs instead of turn around and go out the door. Maybe in that moment, you're just so terrified that you aren't thinking. Chris started to physically attack her. He threw her head into the sheetrock wall. He grabbed a picture and threw it on the floor. And he said, why did you break the picture, Kel? She said, I didn't, Chris. You did. You know what, Kel? I don't think logic's going to work with him. I don't think telling him you did this is going to go over well. And what was his response to this? And how did Chris respond to logic? He smirked. He laughed. And he said, see what I can do. Terrifying. So we're told by Elizabeth that it's surreal to walk through this crime scene. And then we see Chris in the bathroom again, where his hand is bleeding, where he's filming himself. And he says he just wanted more sex. He deserved that. Sir, you did not deserve more sex. You were getting more than you deserved anyway. You are revolting. No, this is not how you get somebody to sleep with you. You don't demand it. He is revolting. And then he asks, well, isn't that normal? No, it is not normal. Absolutely not. That is rape. If she isn't willing, that's not consent. He was naked throughout the entire attack. And when he took off, she booked it. She grabbed her dog Chester and sent him down into the basement and she bolted out the door. Why are we leaving Chester? Why are we putting Chester in the basement? I don't like this. I guess she couldn't run as fast if she brought him, but this makes me very nervous. I don't know if I could leave all of my dogs. It would be a zoo getting out of there. So maybe Chester just wasn't a fast little Chester. I don't know. Oh, that's horrible. It's very scary. So as she takes off, you hear Chester barking on the front door cam. Then we hear Kelly's neighbor call 911 and said her neighbor just came banging on her front door and she's hurt really bad. And as this call is in process, Kelly looks out the window and she sees Chris is standing in the bay window, smearing his blood all over the window. Then he turns and heads toward the basement. No. Oh gosh, I'm scared. No, I don't know if I can watch this. Oh my God, please don't hurt the dog. Kelly says, I'm not going to let that man kill my dog. And then we see the dash cam. We see her running back into the house. Oh my gosh, I hope Chester's okay. She's out of breath as she goes into the house. She's crying in the ITM and saying there's no way in hell that he would lay a hand on that dog. I'm really scared. Oh my gosh, what's she going to find? So she sees the basement door open and Chester was laying in front of the door, but he was alive. Okay, he was alive. That gave me a heart attack. Do not kill the dog. Never. So Kelly slams the basement door shut and she hears Chris downstairs screaming bloody murder. And she looks to her left and she sees the police have shown up. She just started screaming, please help me. Please help her. Please help Chester. So the night of the incident, they transfer Chris to a VA hospital. They've done a few psych evals, but they don't have a conclusive diagnosis. A few days after his release, Chris called and left Kelly a voicemail, which Elizabeth describes as absolutely chilling. He said, it's been a few days and I just wanted to hear your voice and make sure you're okay and talk to you. And I love you. There was nothing wrong with the psych evals. What is happening here? So then we see the first page of the arrest record. We see that Chris was born in 1985. He's 5'11", weighs 220 pounds. We see a case number. We can't see the charges from the excerpt that were shown, but then we're told that he's charged with strangulation and assault because during the attack, he did slam her head into a wall, assault, and he strangled her 3 times to where she passed out. So the strangulation, which also could be part of the assault. And actually, she says it's aggravated assault. Aggravated assault means that there is an aggravating condition. For example, the presence of the knife, the presence of the weapon would be an aggravating condition for assault. So New Jersey had this law that eliminated bail for first-time offenders. So what that means is that if you have never been arrested before and you go commit a crime, they are going to let you out of jail to await your hearing. That's what bail is. It's you don't have to wait in jail for us to determine whether or not you're innocent. And usually when you do bond hearings, you go in and you have to show that the person is not a flight risk and that they're not a danger to the community. So maybe this law was created around the idea that if you've never been arrested, you're not a danger to the community. You have no prior arrest. That's not convictions, that's arrest. But what if you're a flight risk? What if with this law, the person just leaves the country? Maybe they still have to surrender their passport. That's usually done in a bail hearing. So this is an interesting law. But what it means is that Chris had no prior record and he was let out of jail right as soon as he was arrested. He was left out of jail to await his trial on strangulation and aggravated assault. You would think that a law like that would limit what crimes qualify as first-time offenses, like maybe first-time drug offenses. I don't know. That's pretty broad. Now, Detective Littman tells us that he told his kids, bad guys go to jail. And he said it doesn't always happen like that. Just because you have probable cause doesn't mean you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's his job to get the evidence so that the DA can prove the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So what he's talking about here are 2 legal standards that we see in criminal cases. Probable cause is a very low standard, and that's the standard that you need to arrest somebody. Probable cause is just that a reasonable person can think that a crime is being committed or has been committed. It's an even lower standard than preponderance of the evidence. In civil cases, when you're trying to prove your case, you have to prove it by preponderance of the evidence, which means more likely than not. It's a feather's tip of the scales. Probable cause is lower than that. It's that a reasonable person would believe that a crime will be found. Now, given that Chris was trying to set this up to look like a crime scene, arguably he was giving them probable cause just by doing that. Now, that's just to arrest somebody. And in the United States, defendants are innocent until they're proven guilty. And it's up to the prosecutor to present enough evidence to show that a crime was committed beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the highest burden we have in law. So what is beyond a reasonable doubt? It means they have to put forth enough admissible evidence to convince the jury or the judge in a bench trial that the defendant is guilty and leaves no reasonable doubt in their minds. It's not absolutely certain, but it's a very high degree of certainty. So with civil cases, it's just a tip of the scales. If you're looking at the scales with reasonable doubt, go ahead and put one scale way up to the top and drop one way down. It is a high burden. Detective Littman is telling us it's his job to get the evidence to meet that burden of proof. Detective Littman says you can do a good, thorough investigation and hand it up to the powers that be, the DA's office, and they say no. There are rules of evidence on what is allowed. So they've got to do a good job. They've got to secure the crime scene. They have to be careful when they collect the evidence. With Chris out on the streets, Kelly was fearful, and she got some dogs who are protection trained. And they are beautiful dogs. They are German Shepherds. We meet Luca. He is a black and tan German Shepherd. He kind of looks like my Lola. She's a little German Shepherd mix, and she's got that little face. It's just so cute. But Luca was bred just for Kelly, for her protection. Oh my gosh, Luca's so cute. I love that little smooshy face. Now, the trainer says that he would bet his life on Luca being able to keep her safe. And we see Luca training. He's mad. He's real mad. And this guy approaches him with something protecting his arm. My goodness, sir, I do not know if that would protect your arm. I wouldn't trust it, but you're the expert. Luca, he's a mad puppy. So mad. Oh, yeah. He gets the arm. He's wrestling him down. Get him, Luca. Now, Kelly says that the actual attack was horrific, but she would take that physical abuse any day over the mental and emotional exhaustion she's had since the attack happened. She is living in fear. I'm so glad she has Luca. When she gets back to the house that night, she finds Chris's phone. What she found in it was absolutely horrifying. I wonder if we're going to see those videos of him talking to himself in the mirror. It was unhinged. Nope, it wasn't that. Nope. What he found were 100 pictures of her sleeping. What the fuck? You're in a very vulnerable position when you are sleeping. You're unaware of your surroundings. You're unable to defend yourself. No, sir. What the heck? She had no idea that he ever took these pictures until now. She found a video in his phone where she's passed out and he's masturbating. She didn't know about this. In that picture of them laying in bed and him kissing her head, we learned that she was asleep. She didn't know he was there doing that or taking pictures. And he's smiling in a picture after he kisses her. He's wide awake smiling. And she says this is the creepiest picture she's ever seen. And then she remembers an incident earlier in the marriage where she woke up and he was inside of her. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I thought you were awake." She was convinced the episode was a dream, and now she's realizing this was not a dream. I wonder if he gaslit her into believing that did not happen. When she sees these pictures, it all makes sense. The reason that she was ill, the reason that she had those hives. Remember at the beginning of this episode, she said he would go get food for her, water for her. Well, she had a powder she would put in her water, a flavored powder, and he was poisoning her so that she would pass out and he could rape her. Elizabeth makes a valid point. This man is weak. He only feels power when the woman he's with is comatose. That's because when they're awake, they don't want you, sir. You are revolting. Kelly takes the phone to Detective Littman and says, "There's so much here that you need to see. Don't give him back his phone." Detective Littman explains that Kelly had no right to go into that phone. So if he confiscated the phone at that point, they would have an argument called fruit of the poisonous tree. Evidence that's obtained in a wrong way and anything that leads from it could be inadmissible. What we need is a search warrant. We need to go to the court and get an order saying that we're allowed to confiscate this phone. That way it will be obtained with the court's permission. But they had to return the phone to Chris until they could get a search warrant. And by the time they got the search warrant, the evidence was gone. Kelly makes a report of being drugged and raped by Christopher at the police station. And the police then can investigate this crime. They go in and they start looking through medications, and they find 2 medications that are usually used for breast cancer. And the investigators consult with medical experts and they say, yeah, whatever Kelly was describing, those rashes, headaches, fatigue, those are side effects of these drugs. Littman goes on to say, proving that beyond a reasonable doubt becomes hard. He doesn't have a blood test to show she was given those drugs. And that would be great evidence. That would be direct evidence. But crimes can also be proven with circumstantial evidence. It's a little more risky. There's more room for doubt there. But we find these drugs in her house. He was bringing her water. She has proof of having rashes. We can have medical records showing that she was fatigued, had rashes, had headaches. and that the doctors couldn't figure it out. But again, you could poke doubt on it. You could say it was migraine. She had gotten to some poison ivy. They could try it by circumstantial evidence, but Detective Littman is correct. A blood test showing exactly what the drugs are would be perfect direct evidence. Littman says he does think that Chris was drugging her, but just because he's convinced doesn't mean the prosecutor's office will be. And prosecutors did conclude that that was not enough to charge him. They didn't think they would be able to meet their burden, which completely understandable. Kelly was upset they couldn't bring charges for the sexual assault, but she was told the strangulation, that charge would likely end up with him serving some time. Now, there was aggravated assault and strangulation. He's a first-time offender. Being a first-time offender would be a mitigating circumstance. If the state is working out a plea, it would be something that they would consider and offering a reduced sentence. I mean, as a defense attorney, I would say this man served our country. I would want him in anger management courses, showing that he's working on himself when trying to negotiate this plea. My guess is he gets 3 years probation. Let's see what happens. So while Chris and Kelly were on their honeymoon in Maui, Chris wrote 2 letters to her. One was for their first anniversary, which would have been around this time that this attack happened. The other one was to give her on her 10-year anniversary. After the attack, Chris and his attorneys were given a time to go into the house and collect Chris's items. He went into the house and he took these 2 letters with him and left them on Kelly's bed for her to find. So we read one letter. He's saying that he's the happiest he has been. He can't wait to grow old with her. Their love is his biggest accomplishment. All of these compliments, though, are reflecting back on him. It's his biggest accomplishment. He is the happiest he's ever been. And they're very generic and vague. They don't have to do with her and how special she is, that she is such an intelligent woman. We're looking at the handwritten letter and it says, all I can do is smile. I want you to know that you saved me. His love for her, it's all about him. It has nothing to do with her. It's not, you are the most beautiful woman and the smartest woman, and I love your success, and you've got amazing friends and amazing support, and you have the most interesting hobbies. His love for her is just a reflection back on him. Red flag. Kelly thinks Chris thought these letters would make her drop all the charges, make her come back. She says the letters, they were very sentimental. I'm sorry. These letters are BS. We're looking at another handwritten letter. From this day until I vow to you that I will always be there for you, be your best friend, be your shoulder to cry on, rub your back when you can't sleep, love you with the fire of 1,000 suns, protect you and grow old with you. Again, this entire letter is about him, what he's going to do. I can't with this guy. This is not romantic. Now, Elizabeth is agreeing with Kelly. These are very romantic, very thoughtful. No, these are very much about him. I'm not reading the same letter. And Kelly is saying that this is what makes him so charming. This is why she didn't know. But read what he's saying. He's saying, you make me feel good. I'm going to be this for you. I'm going to be that in your life. It's all about him. It's a red flag. It's a dead giveaway. Ladies, please really look at what he's saying here. After the attack, Kelly tells us that Chris started stalking her. The house was completely damaged. She had to live in the hotel for 2.5 months. One day, Chris was sitting in the parking lot of the hotel, and she walked out the door, and Chris flicked his lights on to let her know that he was there, and then sped off to scare her. She wakes up one morning. She's moved back into the house. She lets the dogs out in the backyard, and she sees the dog bolt to an area of the yard and start eating something. And she wonders what he's eating, and she goes to look, and there's chocolate-covered pretzels covering her lawn. Now, if you remember from the beginning of this, he was wooing her with chocolate-covered pretzels and white lilies. And we see her friend Christina, who says that was one of Chris's favorite treats, was chocolate-covered pretzels. Of course he is trying to woo her with things that are his favorite. Of course, this man is so self-absorbed. And she says, not only do I think Chris is trying to kill my dogs with chocolate, but I think he's sending me a message that I could kill you too. Christina was back at the house every weekend. They were always in fear that he was going to come back to the house. And we see Kelly entering the front door, and her door cam shows she's looking over her shoulder. And hopefully she grabbed those chocolate pretzels before the dogs got too many of them. My dog once grabbed half a tray of brownies off of the kitchen counter. He's fine. I didn't know he could get up there. Apparently, he can do anything for food, but it doesn't sound like the dog ate enough for it to be toxic. And those are bigger dogs. So luckily, she was watching when she let the dog out. Officer Littman says the officers were sent to her house on a rotation to monitor the house. So we see the doorbell video. She's locking up the front door. All of a sudden, we hear a little bell ringing. And she says, Chris, what the heck is that? Is that a bicycle bell? Is he on his tricycle? What is this bell? And I mean, a minute. What is this bell? This is some serial killer stuff. And it's around 5 o'clock. So it's in winter. It's cold outside. She's in her coat. She walks down into the driveway. We see a police car pulling up into the driveway, and they were there to take her gun away. What has happened? So back in 19, Kelly was at a shooting range, and her instructor told her that her 20 magazine clip was illegal now. So she needed to get one that was 10, and that it would be a felony to have 20 bullet instead of a 10 bullet magazine, and that she could go to jail. So she tells Chris, this is a few months before the attack, September 2019, and he doesn't do anything about it. He said he would take care of it, but of course he doesn't. So then we see an affidavit by Chris. They go to the prosecutor's office, and the affidavit surrounds this 20 magazine firearm. So the police came and took her gun away. Oh my gosh. I wonder if she was charged. I hope not. Chris thought this would give her leverage to not want to go to trial. She stood her ground. Elizabeth does tell us that the prosecutor's office decided not to prosecute Kelly with a felony gun charge. Elizabeth asks Kelly if she saw the red flags looking back. In hindsight's 2020. The first thing she says is, I saw the love bombing. That was too soon. I agree with you. I saw that one. What else you got? And when Chris told Kelly that he loved her on the second date, she said that her heart just dropped. She said she would tell her friends, he's just too nice. And they would say, well, you're used to dating jerks. So the friends weren't picking up on these red flags either. The man was a red billboard. Dating a nice guy and dating love bomber, very different. On the second date, he doesn't know her. How could he love her? And again, that's because his love isn't about her. It's about him and how he feels and what his needs are. He doesn't know her to love her. And her friends, they were telling her, this is what a real guy's supposed to be like. Now Elizabeth says, do you feel like he loved you that deeply? She says, no. That's right. That's right, sister. He loves himself. Now she's saying that she thinks this is a facade, but he may not realize it's a facade. He may be acting like this just because he loves in a toxic way. Kelly now says she sees the flags that she either missed or rationalized. And the first thing she says, big red flag, that all of his exes are crazy. All of your exes are crazy. Maybe you're making them crazy. In the mirror, sir. He says that his exes were addicts. They were alcoholics. Well, sir, why are you choosing these people as partners? Kelly brings on a private investigator, and she finds out that Chris had at least 3 ex-wives. She did not know this. This tracks. So she tells the private investigator she wants to reach out to these exes. She doesn't want to drag them through this mess, but she wants to know what they experience. She wants to know that it's not just her. And honey, it's not just you. It's not. This is a him problem. And I bet that they all experience different levels depending on how long they stayed with him of what she experienced. Now, she says part of her wanted to know that she wasn't alone in this experience, and part of her wanted to know the monster she was dealing with, the side that he had hidden from her. Chris's exes opened her eyes to what she was really dealing with. Now, for their protection, she doesn't want to reveal too much about the wives, but she's going to share some of their experiences. She says she's not alone. Chris has been abusive to every one of them. She thinks the worst it's ever been was with her, but he's got a pattern. Detective Littman tried to connect with Chris's ex-wives, but when he mentioned Chris's name, they didn't want to talk to him. And then Kelly tells us that Chris's Wi-Fi password, his most recent girlfriend let her know that the password was 12/16/19, exclamation point at. 12/16/19 is the day that he assaulted her. The username is FBI Unhinged. I hope this girlfriend was reaching out because she was leaving him. And Elizabeth is telling Detective Littman about Chris's Wi-Fi password for the first time during these interviews. He didn't know that. Detective Littman says he has no remorse. Every time he enters that password, it's like a trophy. He's reliving what happened. Elizabeth tells us they don't think the prosecution used any of the evidence about Chris's ex-wives in building the case. And that may have to do with the admissibility of evidence. Prior crimes cannot be used to prove that the person acted in the same criminal way. So they may have had trouble having that admitted, at least for proof of the crime. So Elizabeth's telling us Chris is being treated as a first-time offender, and that it's very rare that these cases go to trial. I think we're going to get into the plea part. It's October 2022. We're 1 week before the trial. At this point, we learn that Chris did $63,000 worth of damage to her home. I just hope that she can get past this, go to therapy. I'm glad that the dog is okay. There's no bright side to this, but I'm glad that she's here to tell her story because what we've seen is horrific. And what we learn is that a week before trial, she says at the 11th hour, he decides to take the plea deal so there wouldn't be a trial. That's not uncommon. Most cases do not go to trial. When you go to trial, it's a risk. You're leaving your fate in the hands of a jury. And the state knows that, and the defendant knows that. So it's something that you weigh. Elizabeth asks what Chris was sentenced to. Now, if you remember, earlier in the episode, I took a guess. I guessed he would plea. I guessed 3 years probation. I'm going to say the charge would be assaults, maybe like a lower degree of assault, 3 years probation. Let's see. And we find out the final plea deal, he got 3 years probation. It's exactly what I expected. Wow. Now, I wonder what his sentence is that's suspended. Again, I guessed it was probably a lower degree of assault. Now, they don't seem to tell us what the suspended sentence is. So what probation is you are pleading to a charge. That charge carries jail time, and that jail time is suspended as long as you comply with the terms of your probation. But we're not told what that suspended sentence was. Now, Christina asks, how bad does it have to get for someone to go to jail? I think there were several factors that influenced this plea. One of them was that he was a first-time offender. Another factor could have been the amount of time. If Kelly's testimony from 3 years ago is what this case was relying on, the farther in time you get away from the event, the less likely a person can recall the details. I mean, with trauma, you can recall so many of them, but that's what a defense attorney would say. They would question the credibility of the testimony. And I wonder if the trial was pushed off because of COVID. This incident was in December 2019. A few months later, the world shut down. Kelly says that the best thing that came out of her relationship with Chris was her dogs, that Chris took away her freedom and that Stella and Luca gave that back to her. I love Stella and Luca. I agree. That is the best part of it. Kelly ends by saying she feels like she's unstoppable. And we see the cute little doggy sniff the camera. Kelly was able to find her voice and her power, and she feels unstoppable now. You know, she was out on top at first. She felt like something was missing. She felt like she needed a partner. And after this, Kelly now has found that she's complete within herself. She's not missing any pieces. I hope that Kelly's story reaches a lot of people, helps a lot of people. I hope that Stella and Luca are getting lots of snuggles and treats. And that is it for this episode of Toxic. This was suggested to me by Melissa, and she said, you're going to love this. You're going to be so mad. Apparently episode 2 is going to get a fire lit under me. So, I'm going to have to take a breath, take a breather, get ready for that. But episode 1 was awesome. And I love this series, right up my alley. Yeah. So tell me what you think. Channel Surfers, please leave us a 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe so you can see when new content drops, come over to our Facebook group, Remote Reality. Let me know what shows you're watching, what shows you want covered. What's good? This was a great one. I think we'll go ahead and recap episode 2. These come out on Max on Mondays. So I'm going to drop episode 2 and we'll see how that goes. And we will see you soon. Bye, Channel Surfers. Let's ride.
Tune in, don't delay.